So, welcome again. This is the second subsection of the presentation Birth Defects and Prenatal Diagnosis. I'm your yet to be favorite presenter, Sanana Rahman. So, in this subsection, we'll be talking about causes of birth defects. Now, let's take a look on the outline of this section. We'll be talking about the environmental factors which play a role in birth defects. We'll see what is teratology and what are the basic principles that it follows. And we'll be talking about the infectious agents and very important hyperthermia. So what are the environmental causes that act on a fetus that may cause birth defects or anomalies? So birth defects until 1940, it was thought that birth defects were caused by hereditary factors alone. It was an early time. I know it's not heard of. It's not common to think of that like the way they thought of it in that time. But it was an early time in medicine, and they did not know what was happening for sure. So they thought only the hereditary factors were responsible for the birth defects. N. Gregg discovered that if a mother contracted German measles during early pregnancy, there were abnormalities in the embryo. This led to the postulation that environmental factors could also cause congenital anomalies. It was a breakthrough for that time, as nobody used to believe that environmental factors were a cause of birth defects. Now, in 1961, in Germany, thalidomide tragedy occurred. It's a very important tragedy for medicine. It's a very important tragedy for humanity as well. What happened is mothers in Germany started taking thalidomide. Thalidomide was actually a sleeping pill. The mothers in Germany started taking a sleeping pill whenever they felt like they could not sleep easily. As a result of that, many children had phocomelia. What is phocomelia? Improper limbs. Amelia is absence of limbs. A lot of limb abnormalities were seen in children of patients who were taking thalidomide. This was an association in which the scientists were perplexed that how come the incidence of amelia, the incidence of limb agenesis has increased this much. When they investigated it, thalidomide came out to be the culprit, and as a result of which this teratogenic effect was discovered. The discovery of teratogenic effect led to the identification of thalidomide as a teratogen. Now, what are the principles of teratology? Before getting into the principle, let's talk about the teratogen in itself, what a teratogen actually is. A teratogen is any agent which acts in a specific way on a developing cell or a tissue. It initiates abnormal embryogenesis, can also be called pathogenesis. Its mechanism may be by inhibition of a specific biochemical process. This may lead to cell death or decreased proliferation or other phenomena. What is it in a nutshell? It is an agent, it is an outside or an inside agent that acts on the rapidly proliferating fetal cells, as a result of which either their proliferation is decreased or they cannot act the way they are supposed to act. And how does it do that? It does that mainly by inhibiting a specific biochemical process. So, as a result of this, the fetus cannot develop normally, which may lead to malformations, growth retardations, functional disorders, and even death. So, now let's move on to the principles of teratology. What makes an agent a teratogen? It must act on the genotype of the conceptus. The genotype of the conceptus usually determines the effect of the teratogen. If it is strong genotypically, it would be less susceptible to teratogenesis. If it is weak genotypically, it would be more susceptible to teratogenesis. As I've already mentioned, it determines the way it interacts with the environment. It also depends on the developmental stage at the time of exposure of a teratogen. Earlier, teratogen acts on a fetus, there are more chances of development of birth defects. Later, a teratogen acts on a fetus, there are lesser chances of development of teratogenesis or birth defects. So, another very important clue is maternal genome. Maternal genome is responsible for drug metabolism, infectious resistance, biochemical and molecular processes of the conceptus. So having a strong maternal genome helps the fetus to fight off these teratogens. So 3rd to 8th week of the fetal development is more sensitive. Why is that? That is because it is the period of embryogenesis during which all organs, tissues, and systems are being made. Each organ system may have one or more stages of susceptibility. Now, this is a very important concept. Initially, it was thought that there are specific checkpoints at which a teratogen can act and only a certain type of birth defect can be produced. Now, it is thought that there may be multiple sites or multiple checkpoints at which a certain teratogen may act, and it may cause multiple types of birth defects. Now, the defects can also occur before or after embryogenesis. Obviously, there are very few laws in medicine, and certainly the principles of teratology are not laws, as a result of which the teratogenesis can occur either before or after the embryogenic period. Now, dose and duration of exposure. It's simple mathematics basically. There's a direct relationship between dose and duration of the exposure. Greater the dose, greater the chances of development of the birth defect. Similarly, greater the duration or the longer the duration for which teratogen is exposed to the fetus, or a fetus is exposed to a teratogen rather, the chances of development of a birth defect increase. This controls the manifestation of abnormal development to a teratogen. Usually there is a direct relationship, as I mentioned earlier. Greater the dose or duration, greater the chances of teratogenesis in the conceptus. Now let's take a look on the various infectious agents. So first we have rubella. It was a threat, but now 85% of the women are immune. It can cause cataracts. Cataracts are eye conditions. Most of you must be knowing them. If not, you must see an image of that so that you can keep that in mind. Glaucoma is a raise in the intraocular pressure. There are heart defects, there's deafness, and there's tooth abnormalities. All that can be caused by rubella. It causes measles. Now we have cytomegalovirus. It is a very, not a very deadly, but a notorious agent. It can, the mother is usually asymptomatic, so the mother does not know that she carries that. It may be living a symbiotic relationship in the maternal body. However, when the fetus passes through the birth canal, it can acquire that infection, and that may be deadly to the fetus. It can cause mental retardation. What is mental retardation? Mental retardation is decrease in the mental capability of an individual. Why is that caused in a cytomegalovirus patient? Due to meningoencephalitis. Now, what is meningoencephalitis? Meningo comes from meninges. Obviously, meninges are involved. Encaph stands for brain. Itis always means inflammation in medicine. So, if we go with the literal meaning, it means the inflammation of meninges as well as the brain. And this is what it really is. So whenever you find a difficult word in this slide or in medicine in general, try to break the word up and it becomes very easy. It may also cause microcephaly, as you can clearly see in the picture. Microcephaly is a condition in which the skull vault does not develop after birth, as a result of which the brain does not grow. This is the normal trajectory of the skull vault growth, which was supposed to happen in this child. This is what actually happened in this child, as a result of which the brain matter could not grow. So it's a small skull on a growing child. It can also cause blindness and fetal death. Now let's move on to the next infectious agents. We have herpes simplex virus. It is usually transmitted as a venereal disease to fetus. It is also transmitted during delivery. It can cause microphthalmia. So now you'll tell me what microphthalmia is. Now break the word, break it into two. Micro means yes, small. Ophthalmia comes from eyes. So microphthalmia is small eyes. Microcephaly, again, break the word. Micro is small, cephaly is head. So microcephaly, as I explained earlier, is small skull vault as a result due to the lack of development of skull after birth. And retinal dysplasia. What is dysplasia? Dysplasia is replacement of normal tissue with an abnormal tissue. So this is what happens in herpes simplex virus. Next we have varicella. Varicella virus can cause limb hypoplasia, improperly formed limbs, mental retardation, the decrease in mental capability of a fetus, and muscle atrophy. Obviously, everybody knows what muscle atrophy is. I'm not going to go into detail of that. So, HIV. HIV has a low teratogenic potential. However, it can cause microcephaly. I've already explained microcephaly and growth retardation. There's stunting of growth as a result of, there may be stunting of growth as a result of HIV. And microcephaly can also be seen. So hyperthermia. Let's talk about hyperthermia. What is hyperthermia? Break the word again. Hyper means increase. Thermia means thermal temperature. So hyperthermia is increased temperature. All of these conditions, you should not be intimidated by these. It can be maternal measles, mumps hepatitis, poliomyelitis, ecovirus, Coxsackie virus, influenza virus. All of these have a low or non-existent after exposure malformation rate. Alright, they have a low or non-existent after exposure malformation rate. So how do they cause teratogenesis? They complicate things by being pyrogenic. Pyro comes from heat, so they generate heat, they form heat, as a result of which the core temperature of the fetus increases. When the core temperature of the fetus increases, it may cause birth defects. So in all of these conditions, the teratogen is not maternal measles, mumps, hepatitis, etc. It's the hyperthermic conditions that these viruses lead to. They may lead to cleft lip or cleft palate. They can also cause spina bifida. So let's talk about various other defects that can occur as a result of hyperthermia. First of all, we have anencephaly. Anencephaly occurs due to failure of closure of the anterior neuropore. As a result of this failure, the cranial vault does not develop. The brain matter is now exposed to the amniotic fluid. The exposed brain matter begins to disintegrate, and this condition is not compatible with life. Then we have spina bifida, as you can see in the figure. It is a defect in the dorsal body wall from which brain matter, meninges may or may not be protruding out. Then we have mental retardation, which is decrease in the mental capability of an individual. Then we have microphthalmia, which is small eye. Then we have cleft lip and palate, which obviously means having a cleft, a gap, an irregularity, a misjunction between lips and palates. Then we can also have limb deficiencies. And lastly, we can have omphalocele. Omphalocele is a defect in the anterior body wall. It is not a defect in the anterior body wall. Omphalocele is basically when there's failure of physiological hernia to come back into the abdominal cavity, as a result of which there's a defect in the ventral body wall, and it is associated with chromosomal abnormalities, and it's a very it varies. The patient may survive or may not survive. However, depends upon the chromosomal involvement and the presence of other defects. So lastly, we have cardiac anomalies, which can occur along with omphalocele or individually. So this was all about this lecture, this section. In this section, we talked about various environmental factors, the principles of teratogenesis, and then we talked about the infectious agents and how all of these infectious agents may cause hyperthermia, which was the major culprit in all of these birth defects. The important birth defects we discussed were omphalocele, anencephaly, and spina bifida. I would recommend all of you to remember these, as you'll be seeing lots of patients with these conditions. Thank you. Keep watching sqadia.com.